12 News breaking news now.
Good evening and welcome to 12 News at 7, everyone. I'm Mark Curtis.
And I'm Cuddy Devine. We start tonight with breaking news. Federal law enforcement are currently executing search warrants at over a dozen locations across the valley, including several Zips sports bars.
Now, we're being told that Homeland Security is serving warrants at 15 different spots. Here's a map of all the Zips locations that exist across the valley. We do not know how many of the restaurants are actually being investigated.
We have team coverage. Gabriela Becerra is at the Zips near Central Avenue and Thomas. But first, let's start with Sean Rice, who is at the Zips location in downtown Tempe on Mill Avenue. Sean?
Yeah, Mark and Karibia, good evening to you both. I want to start by apologizing if I cough or sneeze. I apologize. Just a couple of minutes ago, myself and my photographer Philip were really right in the middle of a man getting pepper balled by federal agents. There clearly was some sort of substance in those pepper balls that makes people either sneeze or cough, because it's happening to me, and we were right in the middle of that. The reason that was happening is because they just took multiple employees from this Zips location on Mill Avenue in downtown Tempe out of the restaurant. They took them into vans with zip ties around their hands. They loaded them in the van, and then they drove off. There was one protester who kind of got in a crisscross applesauce sitting stance right in front of that van, and then that is why that specific person was pepper balled, and you can see some of that white substance still on the street there. So that was just a couple of minutes ago. Besides that, it has been relatively peaceful, or completely peaceful around here. There has been some spats where these masked federal agents will come out of the business either to marked or unmarked cars, and then there would be, arguments between a group of a couple dozen protesters here. Video you're likely looking at right here was one of those potentially heated moments. We've seen this where across the country, these interactions where vehicles are around protesters has led to violence and has led to people losing their lives for one reason or another. And so this is not necessarily unusual, but thankfully tonight, there was no, shots fired by federal law enforcement officers besides those pepper balls being deployed just a couple minutes ago. I said this in early editions of 12 News, but I feel it's important to bring it back up today or right now. This is not the first time we've seen HSI or DHS activity at businesses across the valley or in the greater Arizona area. We've covered 3 of those in the last 6 to 10 months. A West Phoenix taco shop. We've also seen this at barbecue joints in Prescott, and we've also seen it at sushi shops across the East Valley. Those are business owners currently facing federal felony charges for harboring and hiring and employing illegal aliens or people who do not have authorization to work here in the United States. So this may very well be another one of those locations. What you're seeing right here is sheriff's deputies with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office taking down a lot of that caution tape. That's another point that I feel is important. We've seen over a dozen Maricopa County Sheriff's deputies at every single entrance or exit to this Zips location. What the Sheriff's Office tells us is these deputies are solely here to, quote, keep the peace. They are not here to execute any sort of federal immigration law or anything like that. They are just here because we've seen across the country incidents where protesters and federal agents clash and there's potentially violence. So these sheriff's deputies haven't really had to get involved at all, despite there being quite a few spats between these masked agents and some of these protesters. So still very much an active presence here, even though it appears as though all of the employees at this point have been removed from the business. But we'll send it back to you guys.
Sean, when you were witness to the pepper balls being fired, were they being deployed by DHS or ICE agents, or were they being deployed by the sheriff's deputies?
Yeah. Not the sheriff's deputies. These were very clearly masked HSI or DHS agents with these pepper ball guns, and then they deployed them there. So that's very much who fired those pepper balls over there just a moment ago. But still, as you can see, some folks here expressing their opinions on this. So very much not sheriff's deputies, just to be completely clear about that. They have not had to get involved at all. Back to you.
Sean Rice reporting live in Tempe. Let's continue our coverage now. Gabriela Becerra is at the Zips near Central Avenue and Thomas. There was a large group protesting there. Apparently, this protest had already been planned when DHS showed up. Gabby, what's the latest there?
Well, that's right, Mark. Everything is much calmer than what we were seeing earlier. In the last 20 minutes or so, some employees who work here at Zips came out, turned off the lights, and took down the police tape that was put up. They did confirm to me that nobody was taken from this location by federal agents today. I want to show you video of what we were seeing earlier. What we've been told is that some federal agents showed up to this location earlier and temporarily closed it down as they conducted their investigation. Now, it's still unclear exactly what they're looking into here. Some of the employees had no information to offer me right now, but as they were investigating, a group started to form outside on the sidewalk here, and this is at the Park Central location, so a lot of restaurants and shops are in this area. But I was told that there was a protest unrelated to this specific search warrant was happening down the street, and once they got word of what was happening, they made their way over here and they stood on the sidewalk just outside of the restaurant as those federal agents conducted their investigation. Also, though, as I mentioned, because it is a shopping center, there were a lot of people that we saw who just happened to walk by and notice what was happening. There's a gym right next door, so we saw a lot of people in gym clothes coming and going, and they told us they were stopping to either just watch what was going on, document the situation. A lot of people had their phones out recording things. Things kind of got a little more heated once those federal agents walked out of the front gates to their unmarked cars that were parked just in front of the restaurant. Those protesters then started to block the agents from getting into their cars. Some of them were able to get into their cars right away and leave. Others were not as quick. And so those protesters really surrounded them, tried to keep them from leaving as they chanted, waved their signs at them. And then at that point, maybe after 5 or 10 minutes of them unable to get out of this parking lot, they called in for backup, and we saw several unmarked cars with sirens come into the lot, and then a lot of more agents with riot gear came out, walked over to those agents who were not able to get out and help them get into their cars, get out of the situation. Unlike Sean's situation, we did not see any tear gas or pepper balls being deployed, although we did see that they were armed with those materials in case they were needed to use, but we did not see any of those tactics deployed. So as far as everything went here, as soon as those agents were able to get out of here, everything turned peaceful. Everyone got in their cars and pretty much went home. Everything is back to normal out here. Again, nobody, we're told, was taken from this location or arrested or detained. We would need to confirm that with federal officials. We did see them leave with paperwork. So we're still working to learn more information about what exactly they're investigating here at this Zips location. And as soon as we have more information, we'll share it with you, Mark and Kribe.
All right, Gabby, thank you so much for that. So Archer Hayden was at that same location that Gabby was at. Had a slightly different vantage point there, but for the most part, described a similar situation to what Gabby was seeing there. So let's get over to some of that video there. Again, federal authorities there in conducting an investigation at the Zips sports bar there. And as Gabby mentioned, it's in an area where there's other, restaurants, and there's a gym there. And so, after a while, there were people kind of congregating, milling about, people from the gym and other restaurants. And of course, that protest that was happening not too far away that eventually made its way over to that Zips location. Once again, blocking some of those federal vehicles from being able to leave out of the parking lot. Some people, gathering in groups and just kind of getting in the way there of some of those federal agents. A couple intense moments, but then it looked like things started to die down. And then eventually you see that calmer situation that Gabby has in her live shot. But again, just some video earlier of when things were starting to get a little bit tense and thankfully de-escalated.
It was a situation, obviously, that could have exploded. There were enough people there, and certainly DHS on high alert after all of the protests that they and their compatriots have been dealing with in Minneapolis. And so I'm sure internal communications say be aware, be on guard, be ready. And they made it clear when they got to Park Central that they were establishing a perimeter and trying to get their agents out of there safely. And thankfully, no arrests as far as we know. We'll continue to cover this throughout the night and the coming days here on 12.